Recognizing your self-worth. A quiet revolution. You don't have to run every race just because the world says go. Not every path is yours. Not every voice needs your attention. And not everyone has to get you for you to be enough. For so long, we chase approval. From friends, family, even strangers. Forgetting to ask the most important person, ourselves. But something shifts when you stop needing validation and start trusting your own value. You don't have to prove your worth once you believe in it. That's when things change. You stop shrinking to fit into places never meant for you. You stop bending for love that demands a version of you that's not real. It's not bitterness, it's clarity. A quiet confidence that says, I choose me. Ever lost something you desperately wanted? A job, a person, a dream? It hurts. But here's a truth. What feels like loss may be life protecting you. Not everything we want is what we need to grow. Letting go can be painful, especially when the heart hasn't caught up with the mind. But that doesn't mean you're weak. It means you felt deeply. And that deserves patience. So let go. Not with anger, but with peace. And little by little, you return to yourself. Wiser, stronger, softer. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Some people are lessons, others, reminders. But you're not here to impress. You're here to evolve. So if you ever forget your worth, pause and remember, you were always enough. And we'll talk about why kindness alone isn't always enough, and when to be brave enough to say no. Don't miss it. This is just the beginning. Part 1. Acceptance, letting go, and emotional growth. There's a quiet truth we all eventually face. The past cannot be changed. We can replay it 1,000 times. We can wish we had said something different, done something better. But at the end of the day, the only real choice we have is to accept it. To accept that some people won't come back. To accept that some chapters won't get closure. And most of all, to accept that we've changed. You can be kind, but you don't have to prove it to anyone. Real kindness doesn't need applause. It doesn't need to be performed. How many times have you explained yourself, only to realize the other person wasn't really listening? Sometimes pain stays, not because we like it, but because it's the last thread connecting us to someone we once loved, to a version of ourselves we once were. Have you ever known something was over, but your heart needed more time? That's not weakness. That's love. And it takes time to heal. Not every conversation should end in an argument. Not every disagreement needs a winner. Sometimes when you share your feelings, you're not asking to be right. You're asking to be understood. And if someone can't offer that, it's okay to walk away. Here's something no one tells you. Many people in your life still talk to the older version of you, the one you've already outgrown. They aren't wrong, but they also don't get to define who you are becoming. You don't owe them the old you just because they're more comfortable with it. We'll explore something deeper. Why being emotionally strong, even firm or cold, is sometimes what growth demands. And why it's not about being cruel, but being clear. Everything will be revealed gradually. Part 2. What the past doesn't say, but the present always reminds. Have you ever wondered what's truly holding you back? It's not always heartbreak. It's not even failure. More often, it's avoidance. Avoiding the truth. Avoiding the emotions. Avoiding the conversation you know you need to have. With someone else or with yourself. And that kind of weight, it grows heavier the longer you carry it. We tend to live in two places that no longer exist. The past, which is gone, and the future, which hasn't arrived. And yet both can ruin our only real home, the present. The past brings sadness, the future brings fear, but the present, that's where your life happens. That's where change is still possible. If you are still kind, after all you've been through, you're not fragile. You're strong in a way most people will never understand. To keep a soft heart in a hard world, that's a quiet kind of strength. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go, not because you gave up, but because you grew up. You realize that holding on can hurt more than walking away. And here's the wild truth. Everything you're searching for, love, peace, purpose, it already exists. It's not hiding somewhere far away. It's just waiting for you to align with it, waiting for you to believe you're worthy of it. In the next section, we'll explore something more challenging. Why do the most ruthless people often rise the fastest? And can you be kind without being a doormat? Part 3. Relationships and Inner Strength. The kind of love you deserve. Let me ask you something gently. Have you ever felt ashamed of wanting more? More peace, more connection, more love that truly sees you? If you have, you're not alone. Somewhere along the way, we were taught to silence our feelings, to shrink our dreams, to treat our needs like they're too much. But here's the truth. You should never be ashamed of your emotions or your dreams. They are signs you're still alive inside, that you still believe something better is possible. And that belief, that hope, is strength. Now here's the hard truth. You don't deserve someone who comes back. You deserve someone who never left. Someone who stayed when things got tough. Someone who didn't wait for you to break just to return. Someone who chose you without needing to be begged. Too often, we settle for returners. People who walked away when it mattered, only to come back when it's easy. But love doesn't disappear when things get hard. Real love shows up. And it stays. And then, there are people who hurt you and never apologize. Not because they're evil, but because they're surrounded by others who make cruelty feel normal. They live in environments that excuse betrayal. They don't feel guilt because they've never been taught to feel it. If you're still waiting for an apology, here's your freedom. You don't need closure from someone who never had the capacity to give it. The healing can come from within. When you let go of their silence and reclaim your peace, and then there's the ache of feeling invisible. Those quiet nights when you seem fine, but feel unseen. Sometimes you don't want attention. You just want to be noticed. To be found softly, by someone who sees your silence and stays anyway. That kind of presence is rare, but it exists, and you deserve it. So if you've kept showing up, kept being kind, even when no one did the same for you, that's not weakness. That's your strength. That's your soul. In the next section, we will talk about how to let go. Not just of people, but of old patterns. Might be the most loving thing you ever do for yourself. Until then, be gentle with your heart. It's not asking for too much. Just the right kind of love. Part 4. Time, Change, and the Quiet Echoes of Kindness. Change rarely arrives with fanfare. There are no alarms when your heart begins to heal. No signs when your soul starts to shift. Most days feel the same. You wake up, go through the motions, and yet quietly, everything is changing. Then one day, you look back and realize you've outgrown things you once clung to. You've softened in places that used to be guarded. You've made peace with questions that no longer need answers. That's the beauty of time. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And in that whisper, you start to see what truly matters. Not the people who celebrate your highlight reel, but the ones who notice when you've gone quiet. The ones who speak the language of your silence. They don't need you to impress or explain, they just care. And that's rare. In a world obsessed with noise and visibility, being seen without having to perform is sacred. But here's something else. Sometimes peace comes not from knowing, but from letting go of the need to know. You don't need to understand every ending. Not every closed door needs closure. Not every loss comes with a reason. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the deepest peace comes when we stop asking life to make sense and start trusting it anyway. Let me share something small. A man once smiled at a stranger on a sidewalk. Just a quiet gesture. Years later, that stranger still remembers, because in a lonely moment, someone was kind. That's the quiet power we forget we hold. Your smallest kindness might be someone's turning point. A moment you didn't even notice. Could be the light that helped someone hold on. So if you're wondering whether you matter, you do. Even in your quietest seasons. Even when no one says it out loud. Because growth isn't always loud. Healing isn't always visible. And kindness? It always echoes. Time will keep moving. You'll evolve. You'll leave versions of yourself behind. But that's not loss. That's becoming. So keep going. The quietest stories often leave the deepest marks. Next, we'll explore how resilience isn't about being tough, but about staying soft, steady, and human in a hard world. Let's continue. The best parts are still to come. Part 5. Strength isn't loud, it's resilient. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had a moment where it felt like the world expected you to break? Maybe life knocked you off your feet, hard. Maybe people wrote you off, counted you out, moved on as if you were done. But then, quietly, with no applause, you stood back up. That, right there, is real strength. Not the kind that roars or shows up in power poses, but the kind that says, I'm not finished yet. Even when everything around you whispers otherwise. Here's something I've learned the hard way. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control what happens next. When you're standing in the middle of a mess, a heartbreak, a failure, a disappointment, you have two choices. You either solve the problem, or you leave it behind. But don't stay stuck in it. Don't live inside the storm longer than you have to. Because being strong doesn't mean tolerating the intolerable. It means knowing when to walk away with your dignity intact. I know. Turning the page is hard, especially when you know someone won't be in the next chapter. Especially when the story felt unfinished. Especially when a part of you still hopes it could have ended differently. But here's the truth. The story still has to go on, and you get to decide how it's told. There's something powerful about reclaiming your role as the author of your own life. Not the victim, not the background character, but the author. You won't write a perfect story. No one does. But you can write a true one. One that reflects your values, your growth, your boundaries. One where you stop reacting and start responding. Because you are not what happens to you. You are what you choose to do with it. Let me leave you with this. Strength isn't about never falling. It's about refusing to stay down. It's the quiet courage to say, "This hurt me, but it won't define me." It's the soft wisdom to whisper, "This isn't working, and I deserve better." And it's the brave act of turning the page, even if your hands are still shaking. So if you're standing at a crossroads right now, unsure whether to stay, to fix, or to let go, ask yourself this: is this helping you grow? Is it making you smaller or stronger? Is this a life you want to keep living, or just one you're used to? Because sometimes the boldest choice you can make is the choice to begin again, quietly, calmly, unapologetically. Part 6. You don't have to rebuild the same house. Let me share something personal with you. There was a time when I kept rebuilding my life using the same old bricks. Thoughts, patterns, habits, people. I wanted change, but all I really did was rearrange. And then I wondered, why does everything still feel the same? Here's the truth. You can't create a new life with pieces from the past you haven't truly let go of. You can't grow into your future if you're still dragging the weight of what once was. So ask yourself, what old bricks are you still carrying? Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's a version of yourself that no longer fits. Maybe it's the belief that you have to suffer to succeed. Whatever it is, you don't have to bring it with you. Sometimes the hardest place to be isn't in a bad job or a failing relationship. It's in your own mind. That quiet battlefield where doubt echoes louder than truth, where overthinking becomes your daily routine, and where you wear a smile while your soul is quietly exhausted. Sound familiar? If it does, you're not alone. Most people don't talk about it, but we all spend time trapped in our heads. That's why self-awareness matters so much. Because the moment you start noticing the stories you tell yourself, the ones that shame you, scare you, or shrink you, you get to decide if they still get to stay. And listen, you don't have to be perfect. Whoever told you that was lying. You just need to be someone trying, honestly, quietly, consistently, to do better. There is no deadline for becoming your best self. There's only this day, and what you do with it. Healing, real healing, isn't about going back to who you used to be. That version of you was doing their best, sure, but they didn't know what you know now. They hadn't lived through what you've survived. You're not here to return. You're here to rebuild, not to become new, but to become stronger, wiser, clearer, kinder to yourself. So if you're in the middle of healing right now, don't rush it. Let the quiet work happen. Let your roots grow deeper, even when the leaves aren't showing. Because what's rebuilding in you is real, and it's worth every patient step. You're allowed to outgrow the version of you that kept peace at the cost of your own. And you're allowed to build a home inside yourself that feels safe, steady, and true. One strong brick at a time. Part 7. The peace of letting life unfold. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been misunderstood, even when you said nothing at all? It's strange, isn't it? How silence can speak louder than words. How people can still judge your quiet as cold, or your stillness as wrong. But maybe that's not your burden to carry. Because here's something we all learn, often the hard way. You can't control how others see you. You can only stay honest with yourself. And in that honesty is peace. Sometimes we think we're late, like life is a train we somehow missed. like everyone else got the memo, and we're still figuring things out. But let me gently remind you, you're not late. You're not behind. You are exactly where you are meant to be, even if you can't see the full picture yet, even if it doesn't make perfect sense right now. Because life doesn't always come with instant clarity. It comes in whispers, in small turns, in quiet nudges. And I know. There are moments when closure feels essential. We crave explanations. We want to understand why something ended, why someone left, why the chapter turned. But sometimes, walking away without all the answers is the only way to keep our peace. Not every goodbye needs to be explained. Not every wound needs to be reopened. Because real healing happens not when we understand everything, but when we choose to move forward anyway. I used to stay stuck in loops of why. Why did they act that way? Why didn't it work out? Why do I feel this way? But over time, I learned something powerful. Sometimes, peace comes not from knowing, but from letting go of the need to know. Let that land for a moment. It's not giving up. It's giving in to the rhythm of life that's unfolding around you. So if today you feel misunderstood or left behind, if you're holding your breath waiting for closure that may never come, let go. Not out of weakness, but out of strength. Choose to believe that life has perfect timing, that your story is still unfolding, and the next page might surprise you. You're not broken. You're not lost. You are simply becoming. And sometimes the most peaceful path forward is the one that doesn't have all the answers. Part 8. The Power of Now. Why the present moment is everything. Let me start with a simple question. Have you ever caught yourself losing sleep over something that, deep down, you knew wouldn't even matter a month from now, let alone 5 years? Yeah, I have too. We replay conversations, regret decisions, dwell on what was said, or worse, what wasn't. But the truth is this. If it won't matter in 5 years, don't give it more than 5 minutes of your peace. It's not that your feelings aren't valid, they are. It's that your time, your energy, your presence, they're sacred. And we can't keep giving sacred things to temporary storms. The past is a lesson, not a life sentence. Whatever you've done, whoever you've been, whatever mistakes you carry like luggage, they are not your identity. They are your experience. You're allowed to grow from them, to learn, to evolve. You're allowed to put the bags down and walk lighter, because your past explains you, but it doesn't define you. And it certainly doesn't decide who you're still capable of becoming. And always remember that. You still have time. You still have time to become the version of yourself you've always imagined. To build the life you once thought was out of reach. To start over, again and again if you have to. Because reinvention isn't just possible, it's human. And no, it's not too late. It only feels that way when we compare timelines, when we forget that healing isn't linear and progress doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's just quietly choosing today, again and again, to do the next right thing. But here's the catch. None of that is possible if you keep waiting for others to see your worth more clearly than you do. Don't expect anyone to respect you more than you respect yourself. It sounds simple, but it's not. Because self-respect isn't just about standing tall. It's about standing alone if you have to. It's about saying no when it's easier to say yes. It's about setting boundaries even when they disappoint people. It's about knowing that your peace is not up for negotiation. So if today finds you tangled in old regrets or worried about futures that haven't happened yet, come back to now, to this moment, because now is where your life is actually happening. And it's the only place where change, peace, and possibility truly live. So breathe, let go, and take one small, kind step forward. You still have time, but more importantly, you still have now. Part 9. Boundaries. The silent language of self-respect. Let's talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention. Boundaries. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet, powerful ones. The kind that say, without yelling, without anger, "This is where I end, and this is where you don't get to walk in unless I say so." Because here's the truth. If you're always available, you'll eventually be taken for granted. I know that sounds harsh, but think about it. Haven't you ever given too much too often, only to feel invisible when you needed something in return? It's not that people are always unkind. It's just that we teach them how to treat us. When you give and give without pause, without boundaries, without standards, you stop being generous and start being taken for granted. So here's a question. Why do we feel guilty for drawing a line, but never for letting ourselves be walked on? We live in a world that praises selflessness until you lose yourself. That tells you to be kind, but never tells you that kind doesn't mean compliant. And somewhere along the way, we started confusing being liked with being respected. But the truth is, you don't have to be agreeable to be valuable. You don't have to be liked by everyone to be enough. Let go of the need to be everyone's favorite. Because the people who truly matter, they'll love you for your presence, not your performance. Now here's something harder to swallow. Not everyone who speaks kindly to you is your friend. Sometimes, the softest voices hide the sharpest motives. Kindness is a beautiful thing, but it's also a skill some use to manipulate. So don't just listen to how people speak. Pay attention to how they make you feel afterward. Do you feel seen, heard, respected? Or do you feel smaller, unsure, drained? Your body always knows. Trust it. And at the end of the day, you have one guide stronger than any advice you'll hear out there. Your conscience. That quiet voice inside that whispers when something's wrong, even if everyone else is cheering. That steady feeling in your chest when you know you did the right thing, even if it cost you something. So here's the rule I live by. If it costs you your peace, your self-respect, or your values, it's too expensive. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to say no. It's okay to disappoint others, if the alternative is abandoning yourself. Because at the end of the day, you don't answer to the crowd. You answer to your soul. And your soul deserves to be protected. Conclusion: the power of self-choice. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes when you stop chasing approval and start choosing yourself. It's not loud, it doesn't need applause, but it's unshakable. Because self-respect isn't handed to you. It's built, choice by choice, in how you show up when no one's watching, in how you speak to yourself after a setback, in how you stop shrinking just to be accepted. And the people who truly matter, they won't stay because you're perfect. They'll stay because you're real. If you've ever asked, would they still love me if they saw the real me? Know this, the right ones won't flinch when the mask drops. They'll say, finally, there you are. But to let the right people in, you have to let go of what no longer fits. Old versions of yourself, old pain, old roles you played to survive. Not out of bitterness, but out of love for who you're becoming. Here's the truth. You're not defined by what you can do. You're defined by what you choose to do. Your life isn't shaped by intentions, it's shaped by actions, by the quiet, repeated choices no one sees. Do you choose kindness over ego? Courage over comfort? Truth, even when it's hard? That's who you are. So if you're waiting for a sign, let this be it. Live fully, now. Say what matters, take the leap, show up fully, because life doesn't wait, and the only real regret is never having tried. You are the author. The pen is in your hand. Write a story that makes you proud, because in the end, you won't be remembered for what you intended, but for what you chose to do with the time you had. And if this message touched something in you, like, share, and subscribe to keep walking this journey together. More stories, more truth, more heart, still to come. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.